There is a way to use the clitoris that you don't know about. There is a whole different clitoris, a much more powerful and orgasmic place, but nobody is accessing it. Everybody is not really using the clitoris right, men and women. Not quite wrong, of course. Of course, you are getting something from it, but it's not the greatest clitoris that a woman can enjoy in her sex life if you just use it differently. So what do people normally do on the clitoris? And this is what everybody does and everybody learns online. Men and women, you see the clitoris as something you need to rub one way or another, something you need to be moving on and moving through, right? Maybe it's lighter, maybe it's really strong, maybe it's faster, maybe it's slower, maybe it's side to side, or it's a circle, but you are moving through it. You see it as an area you need to rub somehow. Now, this does give sensation, nice enough, but it creates a pattern of sexual energy in the clitoris that is quite weak and quite superficial still. It's sort of like a pleasant irritation, right? Sometimes it's like a craving that builds up that wants to be released. It can also be quite fragile. So you keep rubbing and sometimes it loses the feeling, or it becomes overstimulated, or it becomes uncomfortable. Anyway, what I'm trying to get to is this mentality that this is a place that we need to rub to give it pleasure. Now, I have discovered over my 20 years of teaching about sexual energy that the clitoris actually has a completely different structure. Not physically, energetically, it has a really different structure to what we imagine. You actually want to be dead in the center of the clitoris. The clitoris has a core, a really powerful energetic core in the center. You can activate it if you stay in the center of the clitoris and you interact with it correctly. And then you can really awaken and turn on that energetic core of the clitoris. It gives a far richer, more powerful sexual energy than just rubbing on the surface. It's just got a different feel. You will see what it's like when you discover it. You've got to stay in the center of the clitoris and interact with the center of the clitoris. If you keep rubbing it all over the place, you will never activate that core. There's no one particular movement. There's a bunch of different things. Obviously, it's important to do them correctly, not something random. Some of it is just contact with a lot of presence. Some of it is pressure techniques, different kinds of pressure, different degrees of pressure, how to build up pressure. Some of it is very small movements in the center of the clitoris, but all of it stays in the center of the clitoris and interacting there. And you're not doing that much. The movements are all really minor because you don't need to do much in that core of the clitoris. You activate it most powerfully when you do, fairly small movements. It's when you start moving all over the place and rubbing all over the place that you get a much more limited and superficial experience. The reason I use the word interact is because it's not a one technique. You need to understand the concept, what you're doing. You're also really present when you're touching the clitoris. It's not concentration, it's not hard. You're just there. You're speaking to your partner, you're communicating to your partner, you're feeling your partner or yourself. It's really powerful how much is transmitted. Now, for the woman, whether you're receiving it from your partner or from yourself, you just got to stop chasing anything, trying to build up some kind of tension. You've got to relax in your body and mind. You've got to enjoy these feelings flowing into you, invite them into your body. And then you will see a totally different clitoris that gives you a completely different sexual energy. It's not this localized irritation that, craves to release. When you activate that really powerful core of the clitoris, it's like turning on a power source. Now it is on and it pulsates and radiates into you this sexual energy in pulses, in waves. It gives you an ongoing flow of that sexual energy that is vibrating blissfully through your body. There's no tension, there's no craving. It's very comfortable. In fact, a lot of people who have learned this from me have told me that they're amazed how you can feel so much pleasure and blissfulness and orgasmic energy, but at the same time it feels like strangely calm and relaxed, even though it's very intense through their body. So they're not feeling all that tension about it. It's far more deep and satisfying and nourishing and enriching, and it can go on for as long as you want. And it's very relaxed for everybody. There's no sweating and trying hard and your arm is falling off and your tongue is breaking down. None of that. You don't need to do that much physically. And of course, there are different places where you can take it as well. You can decide to have a more quiet, relaxed, blissful spreading through your body. You can build it up into really intense, strong, kind of orgasmic, full body vibration and keep it going at that intensity. So how do I know that the clitoris works this way? Well, a quick background story if you want. Over 20 years ago, when I started working in this area, I started by teaching tantric sex techniques, which teach, I don't define this way anymore. At the time, nobody was applying tantric sex principles to how to stimulate the clitoris. I have no idea why. There was a lot of, chakra, shmakra and all that, but nobody was doing that. So anyway, it made sense for me to apply the tantric sex principles to the clitoris, how the clitoris would work. And this is what I started seeing. Over the next 20 years, I was teaching this method effectively, and I could see so many clients having a far more enriching experience with this than whatever they were doing before by rubbing it. And I also saw that they had no idea that they could do this. They only thought they could do the rubbing. So this is why I'm communicating this just from the data of clients over the years. And now I teach it in my online courses as well. Now, another thing that I've learned from clients over the years is that the more you practice connecting with the clitoris this way, the more effortless it becomes. The clitoris becomes more and more responsive. Often it can seem it's just touch and it's already vibrating through the body. And then you find there's lots of ways to do this really easily. It can be with your finger, it can be with the whole palm, it can be on the whole vulva, it can be with this part on the clitoris, it can be with the thumb, it can be with the tongue. Anytime you want, for as long as you want. You can do this a bunch of times in sex. Now, when I talk about orgasmic clitoris, I don't mean building up into a climax, tension and release. I don't think that is the greatest experience of an orgasm for women. Far more enriching when you have orgasmic waves flowing into your body on and on. You can do that with this way of using the clitoris. You can't access that with the rubbing of the clitoris, not in a really satisfying way. This full body orgasmicity is not immediate. You develop it with time. The more you use your clitoris this way, the more your body becomes sensitized to this and it becomes more orgasmic. This principle of using the clitoris is basically the only thing you need for the clitoris. And because there is quite a lot to teach about this, if you get really good at this method, you don't need anything else. You're just not gonna feel like you need anything else. And then it's like the easiest thing in the world. You flip out how little you need to do to create an amazing experience. Like you practically don't need to do anything. And you build up mastery and you build up your intuition. You become really instinctive with it. It's like in sport, you become instinctive with the movement. It just feels right. So that's what happens with this technique, yeah? Now, do we still use those techniques that are, moving on the clitoris and rubbing it in circles and, things like this? Yes, I teach them too. I dedicate time to them too. Like, it's a nice enough thing to do and, you can enjoy that as well. But you will discover how different the texture of that experience is. And you will not want to use it as much, really. Where those techniques become, particularly useful, so I normally teach them as like a concluding part of clitoral stimulation. Like you can build up a lot of sexual energy through the core of the clitoris, and then if you wanted a conventional climax, then you would build up with those movement techniques because, you need to then overstimulate and irritate the clitoris to build it into tension and release, right? Which the flowing technique is not doing. But those movement techniques will be far more pleasurable and effective at that point, after that build-up through interacting with the core of the clitoris, yeah? But look, I really can't recommend using the clitoris this way any more highly because it gives you the richest energy. It becomes really effortless. Nobody has to work hard. Everybody's relaxed. It makes your sex life so much more easy and rich. So I would really encourage you to look in that direction.